Welcome to Gate City Insider. I'm Rosemary Plybon. The city's health has dominated the 2020 conversation, and the talk isn't just about COVID. Greensboro's social health is a big part of the discussion, making sure all our neighbors feel heard, represented, and treated with respect and equity. It's more than talk. It's actually the driving force behind RACE GSO. Greensboro City Manager David Parrish is with us today. Welcome.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. What does RACE GSO stand for?
The acronym RACE technically stands for, in this sense, reflecting on and considering experiences in our community. So RACE GSO. It really was an effort and is an effort just to do just as it says, to kind of reflect and kind of listen and see what other people's experiences are and learn to appreciate that in a different way.
How did it get started?
It really started out of the events of the George Floyd murder, and we internally were grappling with some of the things, same things our community members were and still are. And so we said, how can we give a voice to our employees and also to the community? And so that's really where was the genesis of this, was an effort to kind of launch kind of a recording session, so to speak, for people to capture emotions and feelings, suggestions, to let people know that we wanted to hear them, that we were going to listen, and then go from there.
So what has happened so far as a result of this? Any policy changes?
Yes, we've done a variety of things. First, this was an effort because we knew we needed to start with a listening session, but we also opened that up to our employees. And so we did some things earlier this summer that I don't know that we had ever done in this organization. Certainly, COVID-19 kind of brought together some different platforms. So Zoom, we were able to do pretty quickly several kind of all invited employee meetings. We had some meetings, 350 plus employees virtually, just as you and I are speaking. The chats, the conversations went into the chat, but we also had opportunities where employees were allowed to speak, were allowed to cry, share frustrations candidly. And we just kind of said, look, we're all a big family. We're all one big unit. Let's listen to each other. And then so even from that, I share that because I think it's important, because this organization does not revolve around my office, does not revolve around me or my immediate staff. We are a complementary unit of 3,500 individuals. So we use that to try to inform some of where do we go from here. And then we challenged our leadership, our departmental leadership, and some of those employees too, to say, all right, what are some existing barriers that would prevent us from providing a service in an equitable manner? What are some policies that, even if unintentionally, prevent us from being fair or present barriers for inclusion or for participation? So some of the changes were noted, some of this summer and went out. One that got some notoriety was the library and the elimination of some library fines and the elimination of your restriction to use the computer if you had library fines. That it was a thought that library leadership had for a while, but when you look at it through a different lens, you realize, what does that fine really mean to the organization? We don't want people to abuse the books and to keep them indefinitely, but fining and then putting up a barrier to have people use the computers or use the library, quite frankly, some of the individuals in our community that need better access, we were restricting. So I think that was a great opportunity for our library leadership to say, we really don't need the fines. We want people to use our service. We extended some of our payment plans for our water resources. So some of the customers that are having difficulty paying for water, we extended the time frame from 6 to 12 months. We still have to run a business, and we still have to run a business that can generate enough revenue but trying to also keep in mind and working with our employees and with our residents to be a little more friendly in that sense. I can go on a little bit more, but that's at least a start for some of the things we're looking at.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from the community on some of these initiatives and some of these changes?
Well, at least I think the two that I mentioned have gotten some good feedback. Obviously, I think the library was a no-brainer in some respects. We should have done that, and again, I thank our staff for taking that lead. I think what we don't expect a thank you, because I think it's the stuff that we should do, and we are constantly now in this mode of evaluation to say, all right, what can we change? What else is out there that maybe not a low-hanging fruit, but is a maybe not so overtly racist or racial, but yet still provides that barrier. So we're challenging our departments all the time now to say, all right, let's think through this a little bit differently. What else could we do? The way we hire, the types of people we hire, putting people in the right seat, we know will make a difference long term. And so are there any barriers to the way we go about recruitment? Are there any barriers that we go about even within your criminal background? Did you make a poor judgment call 12 years ago that perhaps has no indication as to your ability to perform now? We really need to rethink that, and we are. So we're, again, even something simple like maybe last one I'll share, unless you need further follow-up, but we quit sharing the photos of people who've been arrested, but yet not yet quite convicted of a crime. Mm-hmm. A lot of communities still do that. There is nothing wrong with it, but why do we need to put a photo of an individual that was just arrested but yet not convicted of a crime? So we really even rethought even simple things like that can go a long way towards impacting a community and our population as a whole.
David, thanks so much. We'll be checking back with you and hearing more about this. I know this is just the beginning, and this is a community effort that will go on and on and on. And we are going to just continue our discussion with Greensboro's Human Rights Director right after this quick break. Welcome back to Gate City Insider. Today we are diving into RACE GSO, an initiative that gives the community a place to express their views of racial inequities. Dr. Love Jones is the City of Greensboro's Human Rights Director. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Rosemary.
So can you share your perspective on where Greensboro is right now in this conversation about race and equity?
Well, very much so, like the rest of the country, Greensboro has a genuine and vested interest in ensuring that the residents that live here are indeed getting access to information, resources, just having their needs met in general in a way that is fair, safe, and equitable. And I think what's most critical is that Greensboro already has an authentic reputation for delving into these issues. Of course, we have the history of our city connected to the Greensboro Four. And so well beyond this moment, our city has been vested in looking at issues of equity and inclusion. But certainly now, as a reflection of the things that matter to the entire country, they matter here.
So first, of course, you want to look at yourself and look internally. So can you talk about what Greensboro is doing, the city internally, to address some of these concerns, to really expand this work?
One of the really incredible things that has happened is the launching of a training or professional development called Meaningful Leadership Dialogues, facilitating and supporting conversations about race in the workplace. Because what we know for sure is that people who do not feel whole, people who do not feel valued, and feel more at the margin than they do feel that they are at the center, ultimately have an experience of work dissatisfaction. Mm-hmm. And so our city manager's approach is that if we are going to have employees who can deliver the best customer service that does include these core values about inclusion, then they too have to feel included.
So then are those people, is the expectation and the hope that they take that work outside of the city walls or into our community to people who are interacting with the city?
Actually, this is a customer service focused effort that if we can equip people internally that by just simply feeling valued and included, that increases work satisfaction that has this kind of indirect connection to the work that's done externally. We do have some external efforts that are happening that are really, really valuable where the community is driving the ship. And as a human rights director, that brings me utter delight because many times when it comes to phases or times like this in our community, government sometimes does more kind of creating and then putting out as opposed to creating with if we're not careful. And this time we've had a great opportunity between our city council, community residents who actually presented the idea to us to create a body that's going to be looking more closely at issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion, specifically for African American populations. So just recently, in the early part of October, our city council actually voted to approve an ad hoc committee for African American disparity that's just going to take a closer look at the ways in which some policies, procedures, historical processes have impacted the way in which African Americans are able to navigate Greensboro in a way that is successful. And much like the country and the world even, those who are in the minority have policies and procedures that have been in place that have challenged the ability to access even basic needs. And Greensboro's residents said, we want to look further. We want to take a deeper look, a deeper dive. And so from an external place, the Human Rights Department is supporting that body, the committee that was most recently approved. And I'm very grateful to be a part of that process because it is something that matters to the community, something that the community brought to us as a concern. And as a human rights worker, you always want to start from that place.
What is Thrive Greensboro?
Thrive GSO is an initiative that was birthed roughly 2014, I want to say. And it too was a grassroots driven effort that morphed into a city support mechanism. Thrive is designed to support reentry populations or those who are justice served in any way. So I want to first say justice served does not mean only having been incarcerated. It means having acquired some sort of criminal infraction at some point that has shown up on one's record. And so for us, what's critical is to make sure that people who are navigating the reentry process in any way, shape, or form have access to 4 critical needs. And those include housing, education, employment, and voting rights. Many times in those 4 core areas, those who are justice served don't know what to do next, depending upon which resources they're looking for. We've got incredible organizations in this city, but for the person who's justice served, that can be a real journey. And so on a regular basis, we just make sure that that relationship gap is closed so that people can get what they need in less time.
You've talked about a lot of the successes you've seen in the Human Rights Department. What challenges still are here that we really need to work on?
So more than anything, the challenge is in empowering the community to be a part of the process. We eat, sleep, and breathe human rights. It's what we do. It's what we love to do. But we know that you can't really begin to educate people about how to overcome areas of discrimination and or oppression without also empowering. So the partnership that we have with the community is where the empowerment happens, because sometimes, matter of fact, a lot of the times they educate us on what it means to actually try to navigate those systems. So we rely on the community to come to us, to educate us about what it is that we specifically need to concentrate on, as opposed to creating an internal agenda and then just rolling it back out to the public. So for us, it's about reaching. We want people to know that we are reaching outward so that we can learn and we can really create some change that needs to happen, but not just according to what we think needs to change, but what the community says needs to change.
So how can the community connect and engage with the Human Rights Department of the City of Greensboro?
There are several ways. First and foremost, you can simply call our office at 336-373-2038 if you have any concerns that you wish to relay. But we also have some mechanisms, like actual structured processes for engagement, and that includes 3 bodies that we support. We support the Human Rights Commission, which examines all areas of human rights for all residents of the city. That's the focus. Then we also have a subcommittee of that group that operates as a separate body, and that is the International Advisory Committee, which focuses on the needs of newcomers. Immigrants and refugees have very specific needs when they come to this city. And what we do is work diligently to listen to the representation of that community by way of 5 officers who serve for 2-year terms and really, really help us focus on the rights, privileges, access, needs of immigrant and refugee populations. And those meetings take place on a monthly basis and are also listed on our website. And then finally, we have the Commission for the Status of Women, which is its own standing body that focuses on the needs of women by way of human rights and resources. The beautiful thing about all of these meetings right now, which can all be found on our website as far as scheduling, is that they are on an electronic platform. We do have access by way of Zoom because of the pandemic. We typically meet face-to-face outside of, the times that we're in with COVID-19, but it hasn't stopped these bodies' commitment to holding programs on specific topics that are relevant, but also just holding listening sessions where they hear from members of the community.
Well, it is great. Thank you for all the good work you're doing. We know challenges lie ahead always, and we're glad that we have a city that supports our community, and glad that we can engage in so many different ways. Great to talk to you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Stay with us. We are going to explore more about RACE GSO right after this quick break. Welcome back to Gate City Insider. George Floyd's murder sparked calls for change across the country and right here in Greensboro. RACE GSO aims to have our city openly address racial inequities and identify places that we can make improvements. Maria Hicks-Few is the City of Greensboro's Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer. It is great to see you again.
Good to see you, Rosemary, as always.
As always, absolutely. All right, tell everybody, what is the Office of Equity and Inclusion?
Well, Rosemary, the Office of Equity and Inclusion is the arm in the City of Greensboro that ensures that policies, practices, procedures, programs, initiatives, I could go on and on, are basically following equitable guidelines. lines, for lack of a better term. And we've been working very, very hard in 2020, especially to make sure that that's there. We actually ensure that hiring practices are fair. We provide training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we also make sure that the city is kept safe from discrimination suits if possible. So we are busy, as you can see, because that was a whole lot I just said.
Absolutely. And so you really play an integral part in RACE GSO.
Yes, we do. The RACE GSO initiative basically has come up with a lot of opportunities for the Office of Equity and Inclusion. The first one that we were very intricately involved with was our Blackout Tuesday moment of silence, and we also had a walk around the building. Our office helped to organize that and to kind of get the word out. We also passed out heritage calendars. It was just a great day. Then we took that and moved to our next segment, which was basically doing talks on Zoom with the employees to make sure that their voices were heard, to make sure that any hurting that may have been happening because of what was going on occurred, and also to kind of move that forward into our employee resource groups and span that even further with a series called Inclusion Thursdays. So we've been very intricately involved in making sure our employees' voices are heard more than ever.
Yeah, explain those employee resource groups a little bit.
Well, I'm so excited. We've been working on them for a number of years, but we actually have 9 total, 8 active, and the 9th we're trying to kind of get a little bit more active with members. But we have any in-city employee that would like to join, they can join, and the ones that we have currently are African American Network, Asian Pacific Islander, our Hispanic Latino, which they name themselves Conexion, military veterans, LGBTQ+, young professionals, and persons with disabilities. So we have definitely been making sure that all of those areas have been touched with the City of Greensboro, and making sure that the employees have their voices heard.
Yeah. Okay. We're throwing a lot of acronyms at people today, but we're going to bring up another one, GARE. Now, and I know that's an important part of your work. What is GARE?
Very important. We actually have been members of GARE, or the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, since 2019. There have been 9 to 10 city employees that have kind of been in a cohort or a focus group since October of last year, and we've been working with other municipalities, Durham, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, and we've all kind of come together even before some of these racial equity things started happening in 2020 to talk about how we can make our municipalities better and move them forward. So we are so excited. We started doing the work before the work was needed, if that makes sense. So we've been working on projects with our departments, racial equity projects, and we're very, very excited to start wrapping those up and rolling those out to our employees and more to our community as well too. So we're very, very excited about that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note when you said this is that this is work the city has been doing for a long time. This isn't reactionary to the events of this summer, particularly. This is an ongoing effort to be more equitable, more inclusive, to make sure voices are heard, people feel heard and respected and treated fairly.
Absolutely, it is. And I'm so excited, Rosemary, because intergovernmental work is rarely seen across North Carolina. And I'm so proud to say that some other chief equity officers and myself have been meeting weekly for the last month. And we actually have kind of honed down the curriculum, and we'll be doing our first training this Thursday with Raleigh, Durham, and Durham County and Greensboro together. So it takes time to kind of build a curriculum and get that out. So we'll be starting to train our employees very, very soon. I'm so excited about that.
It is really exciting. So there's so much good happening and some successes along the way, but of course, I know you still see challenges every day. So what do you see the big ones that are in front of us?
The big ones that are in front of us are making sure we're not going too fast where we lose some of our employees. We did put an employee survey out a few months ago as well as a part of this series. And some of our employees, as you would imagine, said, well, I don't see anything wrong. Everything's fine. We get along in my unit. So to not offend those employees, but to also bring them along with the employees that feel like, their voices need to be heard and kind of come to some common ground to make sure that we are moving forth equity initiatives, if that makes sense. And I think the other big thing is just to start rolling this out to our community. So not only our workforce sees the good work that we're doing, but in conjunction with our Human Rights Department with Dr. Love Crossling Jones, and making sure that we put forth a good effort in the Greensboro community to actually get some of this race and equity, and also some other areas kind of talking. It's about the conversation right now.
Yeah, keeping it going. And Dr. Jones actually talked a little bit about some of the ways the community can get involved through the boards and the commissions and reaching out to their city council person. What other ways do you think the community can play a part in this?
The biggest way is, and I'm excited about this, we will be rolling out our racial equity action plan the first of the year, January or so. And at that particular time, I imagine some of the committees that are already forming, there will be some actions for those committees, but hopefully there will be some other natural committees that might also formulate from this. And this particular project comes from the departments. These are things that we asked our departments about 4 months ago. Look at all of your programs, policies, practices, procedures, initiatives. What is not racially balanced? What can we do better? And they came back with a wonderful list. We're vetting that list. We did a pilot program last week with about 40 people from the community and looked at 2 projects, one dealing with transportation and one dealing with hiring. And we got such enormous, great feedback. So we hope to roll that out in a larger scale the first of the year. So that's probably where we would need the community most in vetting this action plan that we roll out.
We look forward to, and we'll follow back up with you after the first of the year so we can share more about that with the community. Maria, thanks so much. Great to see you as always.
Thanks, Rosemary. Thank you as always.
Want to find out more about RACE GSO or get involved? Go to greensboro-nc.gov and search RACE GSO. That is our time on Gate City Insider. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next time.